Hello, my amazing listener, and welcome back to Code Your English, the channel where we explore powerful ideas to help you grow your confidence, improve your English, and think deeply about life at the same time. I'm really happy you're here today, and I want to thank you for taking this time for yourself. Whether you're listening while walking, studying, or just relaxing with your headphones on, I hope this episode gives you something meaningful to carry with you. Today, we're going to talk about something that all of us experience: mistakes. Yes, we all make them. Whether it's in our personal lives, in our careers, or even when we're trying to learn English, mistakes are a normal and necessary part of being human. But here's the real question: do your mistakes define who you are? Should one bad decision, one embarrassing moment, or one failed attempt become your identity? Should it stop you from trying again? If you've ever made a mistake and thought, "I'm such a failure," or "I'll never be good at this," you're not alone. These kinds of thoughts are common, especially when we care deeply about something. But let me ask you, have you ever been so afraid of making a mistake that you didn't even try? Maybe you wanted to speak in English during class but stayed silent. Maybe you wanted to apply for a job, but you were scared you'd mess up the interview. These are real situations that many people face, and they often stop us from growing. Mistakes can feel heavy. They can make us doubt ourselves or believe that we're not good enough. But here's something important to remember. Your mistake is just a moment, not your identity. It doesn't mean you're stupid, or lazy, or weak. It just means you tried something and it didn't go the way you planned. That's it. It's a learning opportunity, not a final judgment. In this episode, we're going to dig deeper into this idea. We'll explore why we fear mistakes so much, how different cultures and systems treat failure, and how we can begin to change our mindset. You'll hear real examples, useful expressions, and practical tips. And, as always, I'll ask you questions that help you reflect and connect personally with what we're talking about. So, take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and get ready for a conversation that might just change the way you see your mistakes and yourself. Because here on Code Your English, it's not just about learning the right grammar or vocabulary. It's about rewiring your mindset and speaking English with courage and clarity, even when you're not perfect. Let's begin. Why we fear mistakes. Now, let's talk about something that many of us feel, but don't always talk about openly: the fear of making mistakes. Why are we so afraid of doing something wrong? Why do mistakes feel so heavy, even when they're small? This fear is deep, it's emotional, and honestly, it's very human. From a young age, we're taught that mistakes are bad. In school, if you answer a question incorrectly, you lose points. If you forget your homework, you might get a low grade, or even get embarrassed in front of the class. Little by little, we learn that making mistakes means we're not good enough or not smart enough. And that belief starts to live inside us, quietly but powerfully. So when we grow up, even as adults, that same fear follows us. We become afraid of doing something wrong at work, afraid of saying the wrong thing in English, or afraid of being judged by others. Perfectionism plays a big role in this fear. Maybe you've felt it yourself. You want to do things perfectly, so you delay starting. Or maybe you work really hard, but still feel like it's never good enough. Perfectionism sounds like a strength, like high standards. But really, it can be a wall that stops you from trying, from learning, and from growing. Perfection says, if I can't do it right the first time, I won't do it at all. But life doesn't work like that. Learning doesn't work like that. And language learning definitely doesn't work like that. Sometimes, our fear of mistakes comes from other people, from how we think they'll see us. Maybe you've thought, if I make a mistake, they'll laugh at me, or they'll think I'm stupid. This fear of judgment is very common, especially when learning a language. It's even stronger if you've ever been corrected in a way that felt rude or embarrassing. You remember that moment, how your face felt hot, how your stomach dropped. And now your brain tells you, avoid that feeling. Don't take the risk again. So you stay silent. You don't speak up. And slowly, your fear becomes stronger than your desire to try. Cultural influences can also shape how we see mistakes. In some cultures, failure is seen as shameful. People are expected to always be strong, always be right, and never show weakness. In others, mistakes are accepted, even expected, as part of the learning process. So if you grew up in a culture where making a mistake means losing face or disrespecting your teacher, then it's completely normal that you feel anxious about getting something wrong. But here's something to remember. Not all cultures view mistakes the same way, and not all mistakes are signs of failure. In many places, making a mistake is seen as a brave act. It means you were willing to try. It means you care. Let me share something personal with you. When I first started learning a second language, I was terrified of speaking. I remember once, in front of the class, I mispronounced a word, and a few people giggled. I knew they didn't mean harm, but I felt so embarrassed. After that, I stayed quiet in class for weeks. I didn't want to be that person who messed up again. But looking back, that silence didn't help me. It didn't make me better. In fact, it slowed down my progress. I was trying to avoid pain, but I was also avoiding growth. Maybe you've had a moment like that too. A time when a small mistake made you feel small as a person. If so, I want to remind you that fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But it also doesn't have to control you forever. The truth is, every successful person, every fluent English speaker, every great artist, every confident leader has made hundreds, maybe thousands, of mistakes. The difference is not that they never failed. The difference is that they didn't let their fear stop them. So I want to ask you something. What stops you from starting? Is it fear of the unknown? Fear of judgment? Fear of not being perfect? And if you could speak to that fear, what would you say? Would you say, "Thank you, but I don't need you today"? Would you say, "I know I might mess up, but I'll learn from it"? Because that's the mindset that changes everything. Not perfection, not performance, just progress. We all carry a fear of mistakes in one way or another. But when we understand where it comes from, school, culture, past experiences, we begin to see it more clearly. And once we see it, we can begin to let go of it. Mistakes aren't the enemy. Fear is. And even fear isn't something to hate. It's something to understand. Because once we understand it, we can choose differently. We can choose to try, to speak, to grow, even if it's not perfect. Let that sink in. You're not alone in this. Everyone you admire has been afraid of making a mistake. But they didn't stop. And neither should you. A mistake is not a life sentence. Let's be honest. Sometimes when we make a mistake, it feels like the end of the world. We replay the moment over and over in our heads. We feel embarrassed, ashamed, even angry at ourselves. But here's something I want you to think about carefully. Just because you made a mistake, that doesn't mean you are a mistake. There's a big difference. And understanding that difference can change the way you see yourself, not only as a person, but also as a learner. Making a mistake is something that happens. It's an event. It's a choice, an action, or sometimes even an accident. It's part of a moment in time. But being a mistake, that's an identity. That's when we take one wrong step and turn it into a story about who we are. We say things like, I'm a failure, or I'm not good at anything, or this always happens to me. Do you see the problem? That kind of thinking turns a temporary slip into a permanent label. And when we start to believe that label, we stop growing. We stop trying. It's important to learn how to separate the situation from your self-worth. Let's take a common example. Imagine you gave a presentation in English, and you forgot a few words or made some grammar mistakes. Now, in that moment, you made a mistake. You were nervous, and things didn't go the way you hoped. But does that mean you're a bad speaker? Does that mean you'll never be good at English? Of course not. It just means you had a tough day. It was a setback, not a failure. A challenge, not a final result. In fact, many successful people will tell you they've made more mistakes than anyone else. Why? Because they were willing to try. They took action. They weren't afraid of messing up because they knew that failure is part of the journey. There's an old Japanese proverb that says, "Fall down 7 times, stand up 8." I love that. It means no matter how many times you fall, you keep getting back up. That's what strength looks like. Not avoiding mistakes, but rising after them. Now, think for a second about the idiom, "Don't cry over spilled milk." It means there's no point in getting upset about something that already happened. Something you can't change. The milk is on the floor. You can't put it back in the glass. So what do? You clean it up, you learn to carry the glass more carefully, and you move on. Life is full of little spilled milk moments, and that's okay. That's how we learn not to spill it next time. The problem is, we often take these small moments and turn them into big judgments about ourselves. We don't just say, "I made a mistake in my writing." We say, "I'm terrible at English." We don't say, "I misunderstood that conversation." We say, "I'll never be fluent." These are the kinds of thoughts that keep us stuck. They're not facts, they're beliefs, and beliefs can be changed. One way to start changing those beliefs is to challenge them. When your brain says, "I'm such a failure," pause for a moment and ask, "Is that really true? Or is it just something I'm feeling right now? Can I see this differently? Can I look at it as feedback instead of failure?" Because every mistake gives you information. It tells you what to work on, what to avoid next time, and what's actually possible when you try again. Let me share another quick example. A friend of mine once applied for a job he really wanted. He worked hard on the application, prepared for the interview, and did his best. But he didn't get the job. At first, he told me, "Maybe I'm just not good enough." But after a few days, he looked at it differently. He said, "You know what? That wasn't a failure. That was practice. Now I know what kinds of questions they ask. Next time, I'll be even more ready." That's the difference between seeing something as a life sentence and seeing it as a stepping stone. It's also important to remember that mistakes don't define you, because you are so much more than any one action, choice, or moment. You are a full human being, with emotions, potential, creativity, and the ability to change. Think about this. Would you judge someone else forever based on one mistake they made? Probably not. You'd forgive them. You'd give them another chance. So why not give yourself that same kindness? And especially in learning, whether you're learning English, a new skill, or just how to handle life better, mistakes are not just part of the process. They are the process. We learn to walk by falling. We learn to speak by getting words wrong. We learn to cook by burning the rice once or twice. But we don't stop walking, talking, or cooking. And we shouldn't stop learning just because it isn't perfect. So if you've been holding on to a past mistake, something that made you feel small, embarrassed, or stuck, I invite you to breathe and let it go. That moment doesn't define you. What defines you is what you choose next. Will you stand back up? Will you keep going? Will you take the lesson and move forward with more clarity and courage? That's your choice, and that's your power. Your past mistake is just a sentence in your story, not the title of your life. And every time you choose to move forward, even if it's messy or slow, you are writing a new page, a stronger, wiser, more honest one. So don't let one bad moment become your full identity. You're still learning, you're still growing, and that's something to be proud of. Mistakes as a tool for growth. So now that we've talked about how mistakes don't define you, let's go even deeper. Let's explore this powerful idea. Mistakes can actually help you grow. That's right. Not only do mistakes not ruin your life, they can actually make it better. They teach you things you wouldn't learn otherwise. They build your character, improve your skills, and make you stronger in ways that success sometimes can't. Think about it. When everything goes perfectly, what do we really learn? Not much. But when we fall, when we mess up, when things don't go as planned, that's when the real learning begins. Take a moment and ask yourself this. What did I learn the last time I failed at something? Maybe it was a school exam. Maybe it was a job interview. Or maybe you said something wrong while speaking English, and it made you feel uncomfortable. But now, looking back, did you grow from that experience? Did it push you to prepare better next time? Did it help you understand what you needed to improve? These are signs of growth. And that's what mistakes are for. Not punishment, not shame, but progress. Let's look at some real-life examples. People you might know or admire who actually became successful because they made mistakes and learned from them. Let's start with J.K. Rowling, the author of the famous Harry Potter books. Before she became one of the most successful writers in the world, she faced serious rejection. In fact, her first book was rejected by 12 different publishers. Can you imagine how that felt? Being told no again and again? She was also a single mother at the time, struggling with money and mental health challenges. But she didn't give up. She believed in her story, and she kept going. And now, those books have touched millions of lives all over the world. If she had let those rejections define her, there would be no Harry Potter. But she used those setbacks to grow stronger, to improve her writing, and to keep pushing forward. Now let's talk about someone from the world of sports. Michael Jordan. You've probably heard his name. He's often called the greatest basketball player of all time. But did you know he was actually cut from his high school basketball team? He wasn't chosen. His coach said he wasn't good enough. That could have been the end of the story. He could have said, "Okay, I guess I'm not meant to play." But instead, he used that moment as fuel. He trained harder. He practiced more. And he said later in an interview, "I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed." That quote is powerful because it reminds us that failure is not the opposite of success. It's the path to success. Here's another example. Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple. Today, Apple is one of the biggest and most successful companies in the world. But did you know that Steve Jobs was fired from his own company at one point? Yes, he was forced to leave the company he helped build. It was a huge blow to him. But instead of giving up, he took that time to start other projects, like Pixar, the company behind movies like Toy Story and Finding Nemo. Eventually, he returned to Apple, stronger and wiser than before, and helped turn it into what it is today. If that mistake hadn't happened, if that failure hadn't pushed him, who knows what would have happened? These stories aren't just interesting, they're inspiring. Because they remind us that mistakes are not the end of the road. They are signs that we're trying, that we're moving, that we're learning. They are opportunities to grow, if we choose to see them that way. Of course, in the moment, mistakes often feel bad. No one likes to fail. It can feel embarrassing, disappointing, or even painful. But those emotions don't mean you've done something wrong. They just mean that you care. And when you care, you learn. When you learn, you grow. Now I want to turn the question back to you. What was a time in your life when something went wrong, but later you realized it helped you become better? Maybe it was a broken friendship, a missed opportunity, or a mistake you made while learning English. What did that experience teach you about yourself, about others, about life? Sometimes growth is quiet. It doesn't happen all at once. It takes time. It takes reflection. But if you're willing to look at your mistakes honestly, without shame, without judgment, you will see the lessons waiting inside them. You'll start to understand that every time you fall, you get a little more resilient, a little more humble, a little more capable of handling whatever comes next. And that's something to be proud of, because real growth isn't about being perfect. It's about being open. It's about showing up, trying again, and not giving up, even when it's hard. It's about learning to say, okay, I made a mistake. So what now? What can I do differently? What can I learn from this? That's the kind of mindset that leads to long-term success, not just in English learning, but in every part of your life. So the next time you mess up, I want you to smile just a little, because now you know something other people don't. That mistake is a gift. It's a tool. It's your teacher. And your job is not to avoid mistakes forever. Your job is to use them wisely. Cultural pressure and the fear of looking weak. Let's take a moment to talk about something we don't always notice, but that affects many of us deeply. And that is cultural pressure. Depending on where you grew up or what kind of environment you were raised in, you may have been taught that making mistakes is something to be ashamed of. In some cultures, people are expected to always perform perfectly, to avoid failure at all costs, and to protect their reputation above all else. From a young age, children may hear messages like, "Don't embarrass the family," or "What will people think?" And over time, these messages become part of how we see ourselves. We start to believe that mistakes are not just bad. They're dangerous. They make us look weak, or lazy, or not good enough. And once that belief is in your mind, it becomes very hard to take risks or try something new, especially in public. In school, this pressure can show up in many ways. Students may be afraid to ask questions because they don't want to seem stupid in front of their classmates. Others may avoid trying something unless they're sure they can do it perfectly. A simple mistake in class can lead to punishment or even ridicule instead of being seen as a normal part of learning. And when children grow up in that kind of environment, they carry that fear into adulthood. They enter the workplace or university, and they keep trying to be perfect. not because they want to grow, but because they're scared of failing. The goal becomes to avoid judgment, not to learn. And for language learners, especially those learning English, this pressure can feel even heavier. Imagine trying to speak in a second language, knowing that you might make grammar mistakes, or pronounce something wrong, or forget the right word. Now imagine doing that in a culture that sees mistakes as shameful. Of course, it's going to feel stressful. Of course, people hesitate to speak. The fear of looking stupid can stop even the smartest, most capable people from practicing. Not because they don't know enough, but because they're afraid of being judged. I've met learners who've studied English for 5, even 10 years, but still avoid speaking, simply because they're afraid of making a mistake in front of others. And here's the thing. I understand that fear. It's real. It comes from a deep place. But I also want to challenge it. I want to invite you to step back and ask yourself a powerful question. What were you taught about making mistakes as a child? Were you punished for them? Were you told to be quiet if you weren't sure? Were you compared to others? Maybe you learned that it's safer to stay silent than to risk saying something wrong. But now ask yourself, is that belief still helping you today? Or is it holding you back? We carry many of our cultural beliefs into adulthood without ever questioning them. But it's okay to question them. It's okay to say, that way of thinking helped me survive in one environment, but now it's keeping me stuck in another. For example, maybe in your culture, respect is very important, and that's a good thing. But if respect means always staying quiet and never trying new things, then it can also stop you from growing. In a new context, like learning a language or moving to a new country, that same belief might not be useful anymore. So, we have to adjust. We have to reframe the way we think about mistakes. In many Western cultures, especially in the startup or tech world, people are starting to see mistakes in a new light. There's even a popular phrase that says, fail fast, fail often. What it means is, try things quickly, make mistakes early, learn from them, and grow. It's not about being careless. It's about seeing failure as part of the process, not something to be afraid of, but something to embrace. And while not every culture may agree with this approach, there's still something valuable we can learn from it. That mistakes don't have to define us, and they certainly don't need to be connected to shame. Shame is one of the heaviest emotions we carry. It's different from guilt. Guilt says, I did something wrong. But shame says, I am wrong. And when people feel ashamed of their mistakes, they stop showing up. They hide. They avoid. They freeze. And that's the exact opposite of what we need when we're trying to learn, grow, or improve ourselves. We don't need fear. We need courage. And courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you're willing to move forward even if you are. So if you're someone who has felt ashamed of a mistake or scared to try because of what others might think, I want you to know you're not alone. That pressure is real, and it's shared by many people around the world. But it is also something you can learn to shift. You can start by reminding yourself that everyone makes mistakes. Yes, even the smartest students, even native English speakers, even your teachers and mentors. No one is perfect, and the more you practice being kind to yourself when you mess up, the easier it becomes to bounce back and try again. You can also create a new kind of culture for yourself, one that sees mistakes as feedback, not failure. One that allows you to grow instead of making you feel small. And one that understands that real strength is not about looking perfect. It's about staying open to learning. So the next time you find yourself afraid to speak or afraid to try something new, ask yourself, Where is that fear coming from? Whose voice am I hearing? Is it your teacher's voice from when you were a kid? Is it your parents? Your classmates? And then gently ask yourself, is that voice helping me now? Or is it time to replace it with a new one? A voice that says, it's okay to try, it's okay to learn, and it's okay to grow, even if I get it wrong the first time. Mistakes don't make you weak. Hiding from growth does. Being open, trying again, learning from each experience, that's what strength looks like. That's what builds fluency. That's what creates real confidence. And you, my friend, are absolutely capable of that kind of strength. Rewriting the inner story. Let's take a deep breath together and slow down for a moment. We've talked about how mistakes don't define you. But let's be honest. Even when we know that logically, sometimes it's still hard to believe it deep inside. Why? Because of the voice in our head. That inner voice. The one that says, you're not good enough, or you always mess things up, or why even try if you're just going to fail again? Most of us have that voice. And for many people, especially language learners or perfectionists, that voice can be very loud. But here's the truth. That voice is not you. It's just an old recording, a story you've been told or have repeated to yourself too many times. And today, I want to help you start rewriting that story. Think about this. When a friend makes a mistake, what do you say to them? Do you call them a failure? Do you say they're hopeless? Probably not. You might say, it's okay, you're learning. Or, don't worry, it happens. Or, you'll get better. So here's the big question. Why don't we speak to ourselves the same way? Why are we kind to others, but so cruel to ourselves? This is where something powerful comes in, something called self-compassion. Self-compassion means treating yourself with the same care and kindness that you would give to someone you love. It means understanding that making mistakes is part of being human. Nobody gets it right all the time. Nobody is perfect. When you begin to talk to yourself in a more gentle, understanding way, you actually start to heal. You start to feel stronger. You begin to grow, not from shame or fear, but from encouragement. Let me give you some simple, powerful phrases, affirmations, that you can use when you make a mistake, or when that inner voice starts to get negative. These are things you can say out loud, or silently in your head, whenever you need them. Ready? I am not my mistake. Mistakes mean I'm trying. I am learning, not failing. Every expert was once a beginner. Progress takes time, and I am moving forward. Even if it feels strange at first, I invite you to practice these phrases. You can write them down, say them in the mirror, or repeat them when you're feeling low. Over time, they can help you create a new habit of positive self-talk. And that's one of the best tools for building emotional strength and confidence. You see, the words we use in our mind have power. If you constantly say, I'm bad at English, or I'll never improve, your brain starts to believe it. And when you believe something, your actions follow. But if you shift the story to something more realistic and helpful, your whole mindset changes. Instead of saying, I can't do this, try saying, this is hard, but I'm getting better. Instead of thinking, everyone is judging me, try, everyone makes mistakes sometimes, and that's okay. You're not lying to yourself. You're choosing a more balanced, helpful way to think. Let me tell you a quick story. A few years ago, I met a woman named Maria. She was learning English in her 40s, and she often cried after class. Not because the lessons were too hard, but because of how she spoke to herself. Every time she made a grammar mistake, she would whisper, I'm so stupid. I gently asked her one day, "Would you say that to your daughter?" She looked shocked and said, "Of course not." And that moment changed something for her. She began to catch her inner voice. She began to replace, "I'm so stupid," with "I'm learning." And slowly, her confidence grew. Her speaking improved. Her energy changed. And most importantly, she started to believe in herself again. You can do the same. You can become aware of your inner critic and then choose a better, kinder voice. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about creating space for growth. It's about knowing that one mistake does not erase your effort, your intelligence, or your worth. It's just part of the process. So today, I invite you to listen carefully to how you talk to yourself. When you make a mistake, pause and breathe. Instead of blaming yourself, try saying something kind. Give yourself permission to be a learner. Give yourself time. Give yourself love. Because the way you speak to yourself matters, and you have the power to rewrite the story. You are not your mistake. You are your courage. You are your growth. And every single day, with every try, you are becoming more fluent and more you. Learning English through mistakes. Let's bring everything we've talked about back to one of the most important and personal parts of your journey: your English learning. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably someone who is trying to improve your English skills. Maybe you want to speak more fluently, understand native speakers better, or feel more confident when you use English at work or in daily life. And I want to remind you of something very important. Making mistakes is not just a part of learning English. It's one of the most powerful tools you have. I know, that may sound strange at first. Most people are afraid of making mistakes, especially when speaking a new language. Maybe you've been in a situation where you forgot a word, or said something using the wrong tense, or mixed up vocabulary, and you felt embarrassed. Maybe someone laughed, or corrected you in a way that didn't feel kind. And now, every time you want to speak, your brain gets nervous. You start thinking, what if I say it wrong? Or, what if they don't understand me? And before you know it, you stay quiet. You wait. You decide it's better not to speak at all. But here's what I want you to hear from me today. Every fluent speaker, every confident English user, got there by speaking badly first. There is no fluency without mistakes. There is no growth without discomfort. And there is no confidence without practice. That includes failing, forgetting, pausing, and even being misunderstood. All of it is part of the process. You can't skip it, and you shouldn't try to. It's like trying to learn how to swim without getting in the water. It's just not possible. When you make a mistake in English, your brain actually learns faster. Scientists call this productive failure. It means that struggling a little bit helps your brain remember the correct form better. For example, let's say you say, "He go to school every day," and someone gently corrects you, "He goes to school every day." That small correction, especially if it happens in real conversation, is more powerful than memorizing grammar rules in a book. Why? Because it's connected to real communication, to emotion, to experience. And those things help us learn deeply. It's also important to know that even native speakers make mistakes. Yes, you heard that right. Native speakers forget words. They mix up tenses. They say ain't or gonna or wanna, words that aren't even considered correct in formal English. But they keep speaking. They don't stop to panic. Why? Because they know that meaning matters more than perfection. And that's a lesson every English learner needs to remember. Communication is the goal, not perfection. If the person understands you, even if your grammar isn't perfect, you're doing great. You're already winning. So I want to encourage you. Speak more, even when you're unsure. Try, even when you're afraid. Ask questions. Start conversations. Order your coffee in English. Send that email. Join that online class. Yes, you will make mistakes. But those mistakes are your teachers. They are the road to fluency. They are not something to hide. They are something to use. And please, don't be afraid of forgetting a word. It happens to everyone, even in your first language. Just describe it. Use your hands. Say, I don't know the word, but it's like, and keep going. That's communication. That's real English. Real people don't speak perfectly all the time. They speak bravely and naturally. The most successful English learners I've worked with are not the ones who never make mistakes. They are the ones who make lots of mistakes and keep going. They laugh, they ask for help, they try again. And over time, their speaking improves, their confidence grows, and something even more beautiful happens. They stop being afraid of being wrong. And that's when real fluency begins. So today, I want to ask you, what if your mistakes were not something to hide, but something to celebrate? What if every wrong sentence was actually one step closer to the right one? What if you gave yourself permission to be a beginner, again and again? Because that's how mastery is built. You are not just learning English. You are building a new version of yourself. A braver version. A version that shows up, even when it's scary. A version that keeps speaking, keeps learning, and keeps growing. And that version of you? That's the real success. That's the real goal. Mistakes don't mean you're bad at English. They mean you're learning. So speak up. Make them. Learn from them. And never let fear silence your voice. Practical steps to move on after a mistake. Now that we've talked about how mistakes don't define you, let's make it even more practical. Because knowing this in your head is one thing, but applying it in real life? That takes action. So in this final part of our episode, I want to give you something simple. A clear set of steps you can take when you make a mistake. These steps aren't just ideas, they're tools. You can use them today, tomorrow, and anytime you feel stuck, embarrassed, or disappointed after something didn't go as planned. Whether it's a mistake in English, at work, in a relationship, or in your personal goals, this is your little mistake recovery toolkit. The first step is probably the most important one. Acknowledge the mistake. Don't hide from it. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Don't run away. Just take a breath and face it. Say to yourself, okay, that didn't go how I wanted. I made a mistake. That might sound simple, but it's actually powerful. Why? Because when you admit something honestly, you take back control. You stop being afraid of it. Many people make the mistake of ignoring their mistake. And that just gives the fear more power. So instead, try to stay calm and name what happened. That's how healing starts. Next, take a moment to reflect on what went wrong. Not in a way that's negative or filled with guilt, but in a way that helps you understand the situation. Ask yourself, what happened exactly? Why did I choose that word? Or, why did I react that way? This reflection isn't about blaming yourself. It's about becoming more aware. Awareness is the first step toward improvement. Maybe you were tired. Maybe you didn't prepare. Maybe you misunderstood something. Whatever it is, Try to see it clearly and kindly, like you're watching a movie of yourself, not judging, just observing. Then, move on to the third step. Learn the lesson. Every mistake has something to teach you, if you're willing to listen. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Maybe it's a new grammar rule. Maybe it's about slowing down next time. Maybe it's a reminder to speak up or prepare better. Try writing down the lesson, even in just 1 or 2 sentences. This turns your mistake into a message, a learning moment that helps you grow. It turns a small failure into a small success. And over time, these lessons become your experience, your strength, and your wisdom. Now, once you've reflected and learned, there's one more thing to do. And this one is the hardest for many people. Keep going. That's right. Keep moving forward. Don't stop. Don't wait until you feel perfect, or ready, or confident again. The truth is, confidence comes after action, not before it. So after you've made a mistake, picked yourself up, and learned from it, get back to the work. Speak again, try again, write again, teach again. Whatever it is, take another step forward. The only real failure is when we stop trying. And here's something important to remember. Consistency beats perfection every time. A lot of people think they need to be perfect to succeed. But success doesn't come from doing things perfectly. It comes from doing things repeatedly, every day, even when you don't feel great, even when it's not your best, even when you make another mistake. Progress is about showing up again and again. That's how your brain gets stronger. That's how habits are built. And that's how confidence grows, slowly, step by step. Let me share something I say often to my students. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. Just be here. Just keep trying. Just keep learning. You're not expected to get everything right the first time. In fact, you shouldn't. Learning anything new, including English, is messy. It's full of small failures, but each one brings you closer to where you want to be. That's the mindset that leads to real, lasting change. So if you're listening right now and thinking about a recent mistake, maybe something that's been bothering you, something you regret, or something you can't stop thinking about, take a deep breath. Remind yourself, you're human, you're learning, you're growing, and now you have a process to follow. First, acknowledge it. Then, reflect on it. Find the lesson. And finally, keep going. Don't let one small moment stop your big journey. Mistakes are not the opposite of success. They are a part of success. They show that you're trying. They mean that you care. And the more you move through them with grace, the more you become the kind of person who isn't afraid to try. And that, my friend, is a superpower. So as you go into your day or your week, try this out. Maybe you make a small mistake in English today. Instead of getting upset, pause and walk through the steps. Notice how it feels. Notice how your mindset shifts. And little by little you'll see, mistakes won't hold you back anymore. In fact, they'll help move you forward. So here we are, at the end of this journey together. And I want to thank you for staying with me. I hope this episode gave you more than just words. I hope it gave you a new way to think about your mistakes, your progress, and yourself. Because the truth is, your mistakes do not define you. They don't tell the full story of who you are. They are just moments, small steps along a much bigger path. A path that leads to growth, self-discovery, and real change. Today, we talked about so many important things. We explored the idea that mistakes are not failures, they're learning tools. We looked at how our mindset, our beliefs, and especially the way we talk to ourselves, can either help us move forward or hold us back. We talked about rewriting the inner story, changing that voice in our head from a critic to a coach, from someone who puts us down to someone who lifts us up. We also connected these ideas to learning English, and how every grammar mistake, every pronunciation error, every time we forget a word, is actually helping us get stronger, not weaker. I want you to remember that growth is messy. It's not a straight line. You'll have good days and bad days. You'll feel confident one moment and then totally unsure the next. That's normal. That's human. What matters most is that you keep going, that you don't let one bad moment cancel out everything you've done so far. You are more than your worst day. You are more than your last mistake. You are full of potential, and you are still becoming who you are meant to be. Now, I want to invite you to take a moment today, just a quiet moment with yourself. Maybe after this podcast ends, you can sit down with a notebook, or even just your thoughts, and ask yourself, what mistake have I been holding on to? What am I still judging myself for? And what lesson can I take from that experience instead of just the pain? Write it down if you can. Be honest. Be gentle with yourself. This kind of self-reflection is one of the most powerful tools for personal growth, and also for learning a language. Because when we become more aware of how we think and feel, we become more open, more curious, and more ready to try again. You can also take this moment to repeat some of the affirmations we used earlier. Say them out loud, even if it feels strange at first. Words have power, especially when we speak them with intention. So right now, if you can, repeat after me. I am not my mistake. Mistakes mean I'm learning. I choose progress over perfection. I am getting better every time I try. I am proud of how far I've come. You don't need to be perfect to grow. You just need to be consistent. You just need to keep showing up, even on the hard days, even when it feels slow. Because every time you keep going, you are becoming more fluent, more confident, and more in control of your own story. And now, before we close, I want to invite you to share something with me. If this episode helped you, if it made you think, or if it reminded you of something important, I would love to hear about it. Feel free to leave a comment, share your experience, or even tell someone close to you what you learned today. Sometimes, just speaking about your growth out loud is a big step forward. And finally, remember this: you are doing better than you think. Your mistakes are not the end. They are just part of the beginning. Keep learning. Keep speaking. Keep believing in your ability to grow. You are not alone on this path, and every step you take, even the ones that feel small, is leading you somewhere meaningful. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. And most importantly, thanks for being kind to yourself. I'll see you in the next episode. And until then, be brave, be patient, and never stop learning.